Hello, everybody. It's Marcus here. Sam's not able to make it this week, but we do have a fantastic guest. We've got Jay Peterson, all the way from America, and he's going to be talking about Evoto AI. Hi there, Jay. How you doing?
Doing well, Marcus. How are you? Good to see
I
you.
am. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. Looking forward to the weekend and a little bit of relaxation.
Same,
Um,
same.
Jay, just for our listeners who don't know Avito, and that you are fairly new on this scene, fairly new,
Yeah,
just could you just give me an elevator pitch of what you're all about?
absolutely. Yes. And thank you for asking. Evoto is still relatively new to the industry. So it's a great question. And I love talking a little bit about the origin story of Evoto and who we are and who we serve and sort of the core functions of what our software is. So Evoto is a software company. We effectively produce an all-in-one photo editing solution, and that is sort of our core or Halo product right now. It's a desktop application that sits locally on a user's computer, and it does a little bit of everything. So we aim to be an all-in-one. So this means retouching, this means workflow, this means color corrections, portrait retouching effects, culling, cropping, all the key things that you would expect out of a professional editing tool as part of the post-production process. That's our core product. And part of what I'm hoping to talk to you about and share with a little bit with your audience today is some of the new products that Evoto has developed and are coming to market more so this year, 2026.
Oh, that's excellent. We're looking forward to dive into that. So as I've got some questions prepared for you. Um, do you see AI tools like Avito replacing retouching skills, or are they enhancing a photographer's creative control?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it sits right in the sweet spot of what Evoto aims to sort of solve for and enable. Um, listen, I think many folks have been in the industry for a long time understand that the retouching process is not a revenue generating activity. It's a time consuming part of the creative process, right? Some people love it, some people hate it. I sort of sit somewhere in between the two things. I've been a photographer for a long time. Sometimes I
Yeah.
love it when I
Okay.
need quiet time, and then sometimes I hate it when I really don't want to be sitting behind my monitor. But what it was built for is to save time, create efficiencies, and keep you focused on revenue generating activities like the photography part or other parts of the creative process, or maybe business development or other things. Nobody needs to be on their computer until 3 o'clock in the morning editing photos anymore. It's 2026. Those days are supposed to be behind us. That's why these new AI tools exist. And that's really a part of Evoto's thesis for solving a lot of the post-production problems that exist, the bottlenecks, but also the complicated parts of the post-production process. Things like frequency separation and dodging and burning, it's a very manual process. There's so much clicking and subjective decision making that needs to happen. We aim to distill that and make it simpler and easier so that you don't have to spend 2 hours on an individual photo after you, right?
Jay, I remember in the early days of Photoshop, and my background is fashion, in particular hair and beauty, doing magazines, billboards, and we would spend literally not just hours on a headshot for a magazine cover. It could go into the days, and it was using all those things that you're talking about, which Photoshop was fantastic for, frequency separation. It was a miracle. It was no denying it. It was a fantastic thing. But as you say, it took an awful lot of time.
Terrible amount of time. That's right. So the beautiful thing about Evoto, for those that haven't actually seen this program with their own two eyes, and by the way, it's free to download, free to use, free to test. It's a credit-based system. We give everybody sample credits to play with the system to get acclimated to it. But it's really, really clever. What it does is we've taken a lot of those really complicated parts of the post-production process, and we've turned most of them into sliders. So things like frequency separation or blemish removal, glasses glare removal, these are literally sliders in our system.
Yes.
So you have the operator of Evoto has total control over the severity It can be as conservative as they want or as aggressive as they want with every single one of their edits, and everything can be batch processed together.
You can cut and paste it once you've done
absolutely.
it onto other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even something as simple as a keyboard shortcut for just copying your previous edits from one image to the next, or literally you can just click the sync button in a timeline or a project, and it'll literally take all of your edits from your first. Think about it like this: edit one to edit all. Right? That's what Evoto does really, really well. But it's a combination of efficiency and a really, really wonderfully architected system that really narrows in on the most time-consuming parts of the process. Evoto doesn't do everything, and we know it doesn't do everything. But what it does really well is it does the most time-consuming parts of the post-production process, and it brings them from hours or several minutes down to literally seconds. We can edit, in the system, we can edit thousands of photos with literally a single click if we wanted to.
Did you work with photographers in developing this program, or was it something that was more in-house? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. I'll call it a hybrid model. So first of all, Evoto employs a number of photographers, myself included. So a lot of the product development or the maturity of the maturation of the programs that we've been building, specifically the Evoto desktop or Halo product. A lot of that has come from both inspiration from our full-time staff that are or were photographers. Then the other part of it is Evoto builds everything based on feedback. So it's really, our users have come to us and said, look, if you guys could build something like, stray hair removal or glasses glare removal or those types of things, all came by request from our users. And they said, look, if you build this, it's going to serve an entire market of us. There's 1 million of us that actually really desperately need these types of things. And boy, oh boy, if you could turn it into a slider, that would solve a real major problem, right?
So do you think that's where photographers spending a lot of their time on retouching on those on the glasses, on the glare removal?
Absolutely.
Clothes as well, I believe you do. You do wrinkles in clothes. You've got a slider for that.
Think of the more complicated stuff. Like the glasses glare removal is a really good example. Background extractions. To do a knockout in any other program can be a little bit clunky, or it can be very time consuming. For certain types of photographers that need an extracted photo, they need the ability to move incredibly fast through larger volumes of images. If they've got a project and all those images need to be extracted, say a product photographer or even like a school photographer that's doing yearbook photos or something of the sort, Evoto has taken that process, distilled it down to its simplest possible process that it can be, or avenue, and simplified it just the same way that we would do glasses glare or any other function.
Exactly. Okay, we're just going to have a little break because we are actually going to hear from Sam with a pre-recorded about one of our downloads that we're offering.
Great.
Okay, great. That's good. So let's move on. Let's talk about consistency. Brand photographers often need consistent color grading and skin tones across hundreds of images. So how does Evoto help with consistency at that type of scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the Evoto is actually loaded with a suite of different color correction tools. We've got things like AI color adjustments. There is a series of different AI masking functions that are built into the system, both for your subject, your background, or for the entire image. And then we've got a number of different color profiles and filters that are built into the system. A couple of my favorite ones that exist. We've got AI color matching, and then we've also got AI these sort of AI color reference images, right? So what that means is that you can actually bring in your own reference content. Say, for example, Marcus, like you spent hours and hours and hours going through, a project, and you've got some of your favorite images from that most recent project that you've already delivered, and maybe this is something that you framed in your home, and you're like, God, I just love this photo. The colors are crisp, or I just nailed it on the black and white with this one for whatever the reason is. Mm-hmm. You could actually bring that image into Evoto and use that as a reference piece of content to color new images that you're going through the post-production process with. So it simplifies an entire process.
If they're shot under different lighting, for example, can it correct that to a common color grading? It
Yeah,
can.
essentially,
Yeah.
yes. If it doesn't match it perfectly one to one, it certainly will
You're
get
going
you
to get
very,
close.
very close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, again, if Evoto's thesis is to it maybe won't get you 100% of the way, but if it gets you 90% of the way, we've still saved you several minutes or maybe hours in the post production process. That's our core thing.
That's the core thing. Yeah.
So even with something like bringing in reference content to do a color correct on your existing photos, your new project, if we can save you 9 out of the 10 minutes, that's great. Let's do it. It may not be absolutely perfect and up to your standards, but if it reduces a couple of hundred clicks in the process, that's what we're about.
Yeah, I think that's definitely that's the main idea here, isn't it? Really, I mean,
Yeah.
do you see your product being used in high-end retouching establishments? Or you're nodding to me, so yeah, of course they still use
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Evoto is being used as as either a comprehensive tool that's being used from beginning to end for the entire post production process. But we've got loads of customers and users that are in commercial settings, commercial photographers that are using Evoto, maybe even for the first 50% of the process. Evoto is a capture tool. It's a post production tool. It is, in a lot of ways, its own workflow tool. I wouldn't necessarily call it a digital asset management tool, but we're
Mm,
close.
mm,
We've got a lot of new functions that are coming out this year
yes,
that will properly make this a proper end to end workflow tool as well. So yeah, it's being used in the widest possible variety of applications in every type of segment or vertical in the photography industry right now.
So how does it fit into your workflow then? You mentioned that. How does it fit
Mhm.
into like with Lightroom or the software that I use, Capture One? How does is it a replacement or is it a companion?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'd feel a lot more comfortable saying it's more of a companion, right?
Hmm.
Evoto
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily aim to replace any other program. We want to be a value add. We don't necessarily want to replace. There's space for everybody in the photo software industry, I suppose, would be the diplomatic thing to say. Uh, but what Evoto does is a little bit of everything. So some of the software companies that or the programs that you've already named, Evoto in some ways does effectively replace them, or it could replace them. It really depends on the photographer's workflow. We have loads of customers that still love using Lightroom, say for the catalog functions and the
right.
collection functionality, right?
Yes,
They've
yes.
got you and we've got years and years, decades worth of images in our catalogs, and we don't really want to disrupt that or interrupt it. Where Evoto might fit in that example, like for me and maybe for you, is I'm maintaining my catalog, but I have the ability to bring images from Lightroom over to Evoto and then round trip them back over to Lightroom with relative ease. Evoto even offers a Lightroom catalog function, so
Oh, okay.
I can bring a collection I wouldn't suggest doing this, but I could bring my whole catalog from Lightroom. I can bring a .lrcat file from Lightroom into Evoto, and then when I go to export my finished images after I'm done editing, Evoto is actually clever enough to say, hey, looks like you brought this in as a .lrcat file. Do you also want to export this as a Lightroom catalog file? And then all I need to do is drag and drop that file back over into Lightroom, and everything's synced up.
Okay, let's just dig a little bit deeper now. And I'm sorry going a little bit off piste here, off my questions. But obviously, Lightroom and Capture One, Lightroom specifically, dominates the market. I mean, I think the vast majority. And yet, there is no competition for Lightroom. There's lots of competition for Photoshop, not lots, but a few competitors for Photoshop. Do you ever see yourselves being at a stage where you could be competing with a product of Lightroom?
Yes, I mean, I think it's everything's possible. I suppose. I mean, Evoto's got north of 300 features and effects in it. Many of them you could consider. If you were to poll our users, you would say a lot of it does overlap with some of the functionality of Adobe's Lightroom Classic, or even the cloud experience. Yeah, but there's also overlap with Photoshop. I mean,
Yes, I can see it more with Photoshop because it's a
yeah,
Photoshop. You work on one image at a time, and it's a deep
right.
dive. But there is nothing that replaces Lightroom. Well, Capture One I used, obviously, there's
Right.
that.
That's fair.
But
Yeah. Right.
it would seem to me there must be a market for that kind of product.
Yeah. We think there is, and So Evoto sort of sits. I guess we could say if all of the software programs that we've mentioned so far all got together and had there was an intersection between all of them. Maybe that's what Evoto currently is.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about the amount of time that Evoto can save a photographer. So this is an open question, but with all that time that you're saving these photographers, as photographers, I should say,
Yeah.
where do you think they should reinvest that time? Marketing, client experience, shooting more? What do you think? And you're a photographer yourself, so what do you think?
All of the above, all of
All of
the
the
stuff
above.
that's the most important to the photographer. What the thing that I love about Evoto, the thing that drew me to this company and the software in the first place was the power of choice. Right. When I was operating on a full-time basis, I lost so many precious hours in the post-production process when I should have been focused on either education, networking, business development,
Mm,
or
mm.
something similar. Right. Or like I said, if I wanted to be up editing until 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, great. I'd love to have that option if I really want to get into the weeds during an edit, and I really need some of that quiet time with with the lights turned down type of thing. But I think it's the power of choice. You as the business owner and you as the photographer should have the ability to choose where you want to allocate your time. And this is the only program, as comprehensive as it is, that really gives you that opportunity to choose to move as quickly as you want or as slowly as you want, so that you have the power of choice on where you allocate your time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very, very well put. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's very easy to spend a lot of time in your own on your laptop or your desktop editing in your own safe space, and it is a really enjoyable and creative experience. Um, Years ago, I sat an exam for Photoshop, and I became an Adobe credited expert in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really tough exam actually, because not only did you have to know photography, you had to know all the graphic side of it, or
Right.
the video side that Photoshop could do. But yeah, sure, and I spent a lot of time learning and teaching Photoshop at university. But yeah, you don't make money out of it,
No,
not
no, no,
really.
certainly not. Certainly not. And that's again ties us back into the thesis for Evoto. It's like it's about time and speed and efficiency, and ultimately that brings us back to the power of choice. And you should have the ability, especially these days. We're in 2026 now. With all of this new AI that's floating around, none of it is aimed to replace photographers or do anything of the sort. It's all aimed to speed up what has historically been a very archaic and slow process. Like we shouldn't be sitting on an individual layer in a program clicking around, making you should be able to make subjective choices during your edit and still be able to move very quickly. That's the idea here.
Hmm. Okay, and also in the culling as well, because I
Of
believe
course, yeah.
that's a big part of the Voto package is the culling element. Am I right in saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, so we actually released culling. This was formally announced in September of last year, 2025. And it's gotten a lot better recently, in recent months, December, January, and sort of towards the front end of February this month. The culling is relatively new, but it's pretty robust. And I'm actually quite pleased with the results of the culling engine that's built into Evoto now. What it does in simple terms, you've got your eye closures or your blinks, right? So it'll weed
Right.
out those eye closures.
In a
Also
group,
incorporate.
or just sorry, in a group photo as well.
Yep, yep,
Oh, really?
absolutely.
So like a large group of 50 or 60 people, it can detect blinking.
It will, from my experience, it will flag or grab some of those images. It may not
Wow.
grab all of them, but it will. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll identify those eye closures. And same thing with smiles. You can actually prompt the system to either keep or remove images where smiling is present, or maybe not so much. So it's pretty clever that way. And then the other core things that you would expect from culling, like out of focus or blurry images, where
Yep.
say your autofocus lens hasn't snapped to, right?
Yep.
You missed your focus on a shot, and then overexposure, underexposure. Some of the core things where a strobe misfire or something of the
Yeah.
sort. Those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's relatively new. It's going to mature a lot through 2026, and this is really a call to action for for your audience too, for those that are testing it, let us know what you like about it. Let us know what you don't like about it. How can we improve upon the culling engine that exists in Evoto? We'd love to hear from everybody.
Yeah, that's a great one for feedback, isn't it? And of course,
Yeah.
when we get to the end of the show, you'll be able to have the opportunity to tell people where they can download it, etc., etc.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Retouching. I haven't used your software, Jay, as of yet. I've downloaded it and I will be trying it out. But other ones I have used, I found the skin looking a bit plasticky.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
How do you avoid that in Evoto?
That's entirely up to you. So I'll say it like this first, and then I'll explain it a little bit. You can be as conservative or as aggressive as you want with your edits inside of Evoto. Okay. What that means is, and remember I mentioned that this is a slider, predominantly a slider-based system. So that means that you, the operator of this software program, can turn those sliders up or down to your heart's content. It's entirely up to you. You do have the ability, the system will push images to a full-blown Facetune looking plastic subject if you really want to push them that far. Of course, we do not suggest that you do that. Unless that is the desired effect, or if you're doing this for a very particular reason, great. Evoto is not going to be the limiting factor. What Evoto will do is it's going to give you the opportunity to go as far as, like I said, as aggressive or conservative as you want. I have found that the sliders can be quite heavy on some of the portrait retouching effects. So generally speaking, rather than pushing them to 100%, I'm usually somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 or 30 points on the slider.
Yeah.
100% just it does render more of that plasticky result, which especially as commercial photographers, are really not aiming for. We need to keep things looking natural, right? And Evoto does enable that. We just have to be very, very conscious of what we're doing with those sliders during the edit.
I've noticed when you do, as photographers, we tend to have quite big screens we edit on, especially when we're doing, portrait retouching. And I've noticed that when you look at it big, you don't notice the retouch so much, or the grading or whatever. But when you look at it small on your phone, like the client's going to see it, that's when it really, you think, oh my God, I've gone way overboard here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to that point, we've actually, it's a good segue. We've recently released, this was probably middle of last year. We changed a little bit of the layout inside of Evoto. So now there's actually a library module where you can actually see smaller thumbnail versions, and you do have control over the size of them. So to your point, it's a really efficient, or how do I say, convenient way to review your edits as you're going through the editing process to make sure that you're not pushing things a little bit too far.
Yeah, that's a really good call. Yeah. It's a really good call, that. Jay, I want to talk to you about something that happened earlier this year. And I know Evoto has got a lot of good press. I see people talking about it in the forums, especially headshot photographers and people like that. But there's one thing that really caught my attention, and that people or photographers weren't happy about, and I'm just going to go straight for it, is the AI head generation. Can you expand on that for me, please? And maybe
absolutely, I'm glad you asked, because there's a lot of controversy around this. This is something that was an SEO project that was launched by our SEO team in order to drive traffic over to the website, to get eyeballs on the website, if you will. Was a major misstep on our part. This was out of alignment, or it was very much disjointed with what our mission is, which is to serve working photographers, right? This is a project that sort of slipped through the cracks, I suppose, is a fair way to say it, and should have never actually existed, should have never even been in the product development cycle, even for the SEO team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a major misstep on our part. And in the weeks following the release of this, and subsequently pulling it down from the website, a lot of information has come out, and we've figured out where we went wrong on this one. So there's a lot of learning points that came out of this already. So here's what happened. This was a simple web interface. This was a web project that was intended to live on our website, and we have many of these. There's many of these on the Evoto website right now, where it's basically linked to long tail keywords, or SEO. So it would drive traffic over to the website. If you are a headshot photographer and, say, typed in the keyword into a Google search, headshot photography, or headshot photographer, or AI headshots, something of the sort, Evoto hopefully would pop up towards the top of that list. From there, you would land on the website. You would see this very clever looking tool where you could upload any type of a photo and it would render out a really cool looking, semi-professional looking AI headshot. And this would sort of circumvent you needing to go to a photography studio or to go and sit with a professional photographer, which is where we went completely wrong on this one. We serve professional photographers. We do not aim to replace professional photographers. So that's the disjointed part and the major misstep that we made. So we killed the project. We pulled it off the website. We figured out where we went wrong with this one. We've made a commitment to never re-release this, repackage it. It's not going to end up on another website or anything. Listen, the reality of the situation is loads of these things already exist. It doesn't need to exist from Evoto. Evoto does not need to produce one of these things, right? The reality of our situation is if we, and this is the point that I want to make sure that everybody understands. If we put photographers out of business, Evoto goes out of business.
Exactly.
That's disjointed on our part, right? It doesn't make any sense. So it was a major misstep on our part from an organizational perspective. So we've made a commitment to never re-release this thing. I personally am making a commitment to make sure that these types of tools, this or other iterations of these types of things, don't exist. They don't need to exist. You should be able to go over and use your chat GPTs and your Geminis and these other types of tools to do that type of thing. Evoto serves professional photographers. We're going to keep building tools for pros that serve pros. Period. Excellent. End of discussion.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Jay. That's cleared up wonderfully. Thank you very much. And thanks for letting me ask that question.
Of course.
So talking about the future, where do you see AI editing tools in about, guys, I've got 5 years here. That's a long time, isn't it, in the world of AI? Let's go for 5 years. Go on. Let's see what you think. Looking far ahead.
Yeah, 5 years. It's a great question. I think, the content is changing. The way that we consume content, the way that we produce content, everything is changing. On that topic of these, AI, these generative tools, I think that, we're still very, very early on with these things. I'm very curious to see, what the other results are coming out. There's so many other tools that are being generated right now. I don't know if you're up on this, but I'm seeing a lot of these new generative video tools that are coming out that are remarkably good.
Remarkable. I think even more so than the stills, really. I think. I mentioned in the show last week, a colleague of mine, when I was shooting in Miami last month, took just 3 or 4 photos on the beach and a baseball game and of a really fancy Lincoln car customized and put it into this video. And they made a whole video out of these 4 stills.
I couldn't believe it. Commercial out of it. It's crazy. Unbelievable. I suppose it's a complicated answer because things are moving so radically fast right now. It's hard to predict what's going to happen over the next 5 years. I don't know what's going to happen in the next five weeks or 5 months. Actually, right? On the topic of Evoto, our core focus right now is we're going to continue to make our Halo product, Evoto Desktop. We're going to make it bigger, better, faster, stronger. That's our core goal right now. We've got these other products that are coming out. There's an iPad version. There's a mobile version, so you could put Evoto on your phone. But the big one for us right now and a big focus for 2026 is Evoto Instant. Evoto Instant is sort of the intersection between our retouching tools and a workflow tool, but it's intended for instant capture and then instant delivery. So this is like tethering into a mobile application, right? This will automatically cull, automatically retouch based on a preset, and automatically get those JPEGs or raw images into a web gallery that you could either set for download or even set for sale. So you could sell the gallery or individual photos. We're really focused on building this thing out because we think there's a big market for enabling photographers, whether they're commercial, they're school, they're headshot, portrait, it doesn't make a difference. We think everybody could use a tool that enables instantaneous delivery. And if nothing else, instantaneous proofing of images when you're on site or on location or in the studio. We think that this could be a tremendously helpful thing. That's sort of what the future looks like for us. And I have to tell you, we're also moving into video. We're moving into video retouching. We're not moving into generative. We're moving into video retouching. So everything that I've shared with you today for Evoto Desktop, we intend to build for Evoto Video as well. So this is glasses glare removal, blemish removal, stray hair removal, possibly doing extractions and all the other clever things that Evoto does for photos. I think eventually we'll get there for video as well.
Fantastic, Jay. That is what a great product and what a great future. Jay, how do we get hold of Evoto and what do we need to do?
Yeah, super simple. The primary website is evoto.ai. That'll land you on our homepage. From the homepage, you can check out products. There's a roll-up window. Products will show you Evoto Desktop, Evoto Video, Evoto Instant, etc. It's easy to download. It's literally a one-click, Mac or PC, either which way. Like I mentioned, you've got mobile versions. You've got the iPad version. You can put this on your phone if you want to. Lots of different ways, and it's super easy. We're on social. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X. We're all over the place. We're easy to find, and we have a very, very robust Facebook community. So if anybody does want to join the community, it's super straightforward. It's a public community. We've got over 60,000 users in there, and a lot of really good conversation happens in there. So if anybody's curious about just community and like talking to other users to get a pulse on things, that's a good place to go. If not, just reach out to us. We've actually got a chat bot right on the website, and that'll email link you right over to somebody from our team.
Great. And what is the price of the product? Can you give me the information on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's Evoto is based on it's a credit-based system. So the way that it works is as we go through and we process images, just specifically talking about photos right now, you'll buy we'll give you some free credits to try out the system, like I mentioned earlier. So there is a way to get free credits. Everybody gets free credits when they download the program for the first time. When you're ready to actually make a purchase and you want to process more than a few photos, our credit packages start relatively small. We have two different ways to do it. There's a pay-as-you-go pack. Those credits are good for 2 years. It's kind of like a use it or lose it scenario. And then the alternative is we do offer a subscription package. And this is basically a pay-as-you-go pack, except they don't expire. It renews once per year, every year. So you'll put a credit card on file, and then every year you'll get the same number of credits, but you could also upgrade or downgrade anytime you want. That package starts at, I think, $80 US, gets you 800 credits, which means that you could export 800 photos from the system. And we have packages that go all the way up into the millions of credits. If anybody has questions, I would just encourage you to reach out to us directly through the website.
Of course.
Yeah. We'll have a chat about all your options. But all of our basic pricing is very much public on the website. It's literally docked right next to the download button. You can't miss it.
Love it. Very open about that. Fantastic, Jay. Thank you so much for your time and explaining to our listeners the wonders of Evoto.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for having me on. This was great. This was a thrill to join you.
Oh, mate, look after yourself. Speak to you soon.